Hello again, it's Miss Jones from Sew with Miss Jones. The next step that we're going to do is to do a line of back stitching across the top here as a top stitching line. It'll be a little bit decorative and it also will help hold the top layers together. So the first thing that we need to do is mark where the line of stitching is going to be. And we want a 1/2 inch from the upper edge. So your 1/2 inch is going to be the first, or the halfway mark between the end and the first little cut in the seam gauge, okay? So halfway between here and the little cut in the seam gauge. Now if you don't have one of these, you could use a ruler and do it that way, but this is probably the easiest way to do it. So I have a marking pencil. This is a chalk pencil. If you don't have a chalk pencil, you could use a regular pencil if you do it really, really lightly. Because if you make a bunch of mess on this is going to be on the outside of your pocket and you don't want it to be messy. So I've decided this is going to be the front of my pocket. I'm just going to put a pin here to remind me that this is the front. It's not holding anything, it's just a reminder. And I'm actually going to turn this sideways so I can do this a little more easily. So my slider is at the 1/2 inch, and I am going to put it right next to the edge of my pocket, and I'm going to make a tiny little mark with my seam gauge. And it doesn't have to be very dark, it just has to be dark enough that I can see it when I'm hand sewing. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to line it up and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And then I think I'll do one in the middle. And we're going to end up connecting these together. And for that, I'm going to use a longer ruler. So this is a 1/2 inch, not 5/8 like we've done before. This is a 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to make a light line across here that I can follow with my needle and thread. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to be doing a back stitch, which means I'm going to start on the, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on the left-hand side and stitch across this way. Because I'm going to stitch that direction, I'm going to put my pin so that the head is closest to the the head is closest to the right, and the point is the other direction. I don't know, my dog's kind of whiny today. So I'll need a couple of them. What I don't want to have happen is for the top layer and the bottom layer to wiggle around too much. Now, this stitching, because it's a back stitch, it definitely has a front and a back to it. Remember when we did the back stitching to put our pocket together, one side had neat little stitches. Okay, this is the right side, the top. On the other side, it had these overlapping stitches. This is the wrong side. So we want that to be on the underneath side. So whichever side you do your stitching from is going to be the top. Sometimes, depending on the pattern of fabric, you might want to decide one side you like the way it looks better than the others. These are both pretty much the same, so it's no big deal. But you know, if you're making like one of the ones that has the fast food on it, or all the desserts, you might decide to get one that's got one of the pictures is more towards the center. If that's the side that you want up, you can do that. To do this back stitching, I am going to use a double thread, and I want it about twice as long as from my fingertip up to my shoulder. I want it to be about twice as long. And since I would prefer not to have my two ends tied together, I'm going to feed the two ends through the eye of the needle, if I can get them even with one another. It just, if I have both threads through the eye of the needle with a knot on one end of the, or the opposite tail, then if I need to make a correction, it just makes it so much easier. Okay. I don't want a huge knot here because I want to be able to hide this. So if you notice, I have a tiny knot, and then I'm going to clip this little bit off of here. And I really don't want this to show, well, to show up on the inside either. So I'm going to start from the back, real near the edge. And actually, if I put this knot and it's small enough near the edge, then it won't show up whenever I am once it gets stitched onto the apron, right? So I want to do my little back stitches, a little bit forward, a little bit behind, and a little bit forward. I can actually make these a little bit bigger than the ones I did when I was putting my my apron together, my pocket together. You just don't want great big huge ones because they will look yucky if you do. So I'm going to make mine just a little bit bigger. And the reason why I am doing a double thread is that I want this to show up a little bit. It won't show up as well as if you did machine sewing on the top, but it will show up a little bit. I actually probably could have done like a stem stitch or a split stitch across here, and it would work just as well. So I'm going to continue stitching across the top here along that line. When I get over here, I'm going to take a stitch, and I think I'm going to take my thread to the back and tie a knot on the back and hide the tail like I did when I sewed the bottom of my pocket up. When I have that done, I will show you my finished pocket. Well, if you notice, my top stitching is not purple. I tried using the purple, and I guess maybe I just didn't have a strong enough light where I was sitting, and I had a terrible time seeing it and making it neat. So I decided instead to just use some white thread that I had here, and it made it a little bit more decorative. I'm not totally convinced yet. I might try to do it with purple again and just make sure I sit under a really strong light. I don't know, we'll have to see what happens when it finally gets attached to my apron, which will be a little while yet. So there's my pocket top stitched. You need to do that to yours. Bye for now.